Well, good morning everybody. My name is David Eagle. I work for Spatial, and thank you for attending our webinar series. This session is about how government can get the most out of FME, and I'd like to welcome you to this session. And here we go. Let's get into a little bit of the details. So to begin with, I'm going to give you a little bit of a review of the FME product. I won't spend too much time on it because I'd like to get to some of the demonstrations towards the end. The assumption here is that if you're attending, you know a little bit about FME already, so we'll give you an overview and then get into some of the challenges that government has to deal with and how FME can help. We are Spatial. We work for a number of different industries and have offices in different parts of the world. We are headquartered in Cambridge in the United Kingdom, and we've got over 45 years of experience in dealing with big data challenges and spatial data content for organisations with a broad range of requirements. This session will focus on our relationship with safe software and around the FME product. What you can see in front of you is three main products that safe software produce. There's the FME desktop product, FME server and FME cloud. Those three technology products are part of the offering from safe software, and they are some of the tools that you'll see a little bit of content around today in this session. We have a long-standing relationship since 1999 with safe software. We're a reseller and we provide support for all of the products that Safe produce. And we also have a number of very skilled staff in our offices. These people, including myself in that grouping, have the certified professional and certified FME trainer accreditations. These are accreditations that mean that we have particular skill in the technology, the FME product set, and we provide a lot of different services around the tool set, be it technical support or consultancy or public or private training sessions. We also spend a lot of time assisting customers working out whether FME is the right tool for you. So we're happy to help. If you've got any inquiries, then please send them during or after this session to fme@onespatial.com, and that's the best place to reach us. The FME product is a tool that allows access to many different data environments, whether they're the geospatial environments that some of the geographic information specialists on the call are used to, or whether actually it's more traditional tabular data content that you care about. FME can generally work with those formats, pull data from a different environment like a corporate database, pass it through the FME engine and load it into, say, a GIS environment. It's an interoperability tool. It allows you to get data to the right place at the right time in the right structure, and hopefully it's going to save you effort because you can automate processes that traditionally you may have done in an application with multiple clicks. So looking at trying to schedule some of these processes and making them more realistic for you to perform. If you want to know what formats FME supports, this is the best URL to go to. safe.com/formats will give you a list of all the different formats that are available, and read and write those formats, what you can do depending on which edition of FME you have. There are also a vast array of transformers to take a look at, and I would also recommend you, although the URL isn't on screen here, but if you go to safe.com/transformers, that's a relatively new page that allows you to go and take a look at all the different transformation possibilities there are in FME, and also lists those by popularity, so the most used, for example. That gives you an indication of which transformers you may want to start using if you're a relatively new user to FME. But moving data between formats is very handy, but actually restructuring it and getting your data into a fit schema is often more of a challenge. So there are plenty of tools to help you with that kind of thing. And working with both mapping data and non-mapping related data, so spreadsheets or DBF files or CSVs that might not necessarily contain any geometry, is just as possible. So if you're a person who likes spreadsheets or databases but you don't traditionally know much about geometry, then FME can help. Non-spatial data is a little bit of perhaps a weird way of referring to it. I more traditionally come from a spatial background, so anything that doesn't have geometry, I call it non-spatial. But tabular data that perhaps is from an accountancy firm or a marketing agency might not necessarily contain geometry, and FME can handle that content. Government organisations often work with this data. Many people in government use spreadsheets, not so many use Esri. So the idea here is that FME is very good to work with data that doesn't necessarily have geometry. And you can read content from all sorts of places, so databases, text files, spreadsheets. Work with different types of content, whether it is patient records in a hospital scenario, or whether it's taxation and business rate information in a local government scenario. So what government does with this kind of content is process a huge amount of it, and a lot of data ends up in a non-spatial format when it goes out to be open data. Government is doing a lot of work in the United Kingdom to publish open data to make it freely available, and that movement has been on the go for the last few years, and a number of local authorities and central government agencies are making that content available in different places, but data.gov.uk is a location where quite a lot of it is ending up or being referenced. One of the things that we often see an initial use of FME for is a data migration. Whether a government organisation has got a new incumbent IT supplier who has a different database standard to the one that they've traditionally used, or whether that organisation is moving from a flat file structure to perhaps an open source database, then FME allows you to do that data migration. The trick is that once that data migration has finished, is working out how you can leverage the investment that you've made in FME previously for that data migration project to continue to use FME for other tasks. So the other point to mention is that proprietary environments and both open source environments are supported in FME. So if you're using Oracle but are being encouraged to move to MariaDB, which is built on the old MySQL standard, then FME supports that MariaDB environment. And SAFE themselves contribute hugely to the open source environment. So there is a lot of investment going into the open source community. This is a typical view of an FME workspace. You can see on the left hand side a reader reading in some data. On the right hand side you can see a writer. This is where the data is going to. And the blue things in the middle are transformers. They do the restructuring job. And they manipulate the data and route it around the process through different tasks. There are over 400 of these bundled functions called transformers, and they do things like spatial operations such as snapping and change detection, point connection if you have a GPS route dataset perhaps, clipping out content, for raster, vector, 3D, LiDAR, anything can be clipped. So that means that making data available just an area that you're interested in or to a particular individual based on a particular data request is possible. We've also got lots of transformers that don't deal with geometry, that allow you to manipulate attribution or strings or carry out SQL queries against your database. This is an example of some generalization, making some data thinner, less detailed, so that it shows and displays more quickly on a web map. Here's an example of a concatenation function using the string concatenator transformer that is exactly the same function that you would complete using Excel. This is an example of a table lookup where perhaps you store coded information against the data, but a table elsewhere in your environment contains the description of the content. So you can use an attribute value mapper to look up the content and join the description onto your data as you publish it. So I said I didn't want to spend too much time on the overview because I'd rather get into the demonstration. So let's start by building an FME process. So what we'll do to begin with is just break out of the presentation and start to bring in an example. So let's open Workbench, bring it in, there we go. And to start off with, I'm going to read in a little bit of XML data, but let's go and take a look at it first. So here's an XML feed. This is a live feed of traffic information. And you can see in here that there are some tags that contain items. And each item is an incident on the road network. What we want to do is try and read and consume this data. And you'll notice that this is at the end of a URL. If I hit refresh, it'll re-hit that URL and give us some content. So what I'm going to do is copy that URL. And I'm going to create a new workspace. And what we want to do is bring in that XML feed. So we can type in the format that we care about, which is XML, and rather than browsing for a file that I've pre-downloaded, I'm actually going to hit the URL directly. That's one of the benefits of FME is that we can get FME to do the download for us, but also this workspace now, every time I run it, it will always go and get the latest data directly from the URL without me having to worry about it. So I need to go and find that item tag in the XML, the one that contains all the incidents, and there it is, and that's the one that I want to bring in. And I want to flatten out those attributes. So rather than having a document view, effectively an XML document view, I want to sort of pivot round the attributes and create columns of information by flattening out the content. And I'm going to write, in this case, the data to KML, and I'm going to write it out to a particular folder. So I need to just go and specify that location. So let's go and grab it. That's just there. So there's an out directory, and I'm just going to switch the file extension actually, so we can go to the compressed form of KML, which is KMZ. I'm also going to add some parameters, so I'm going to put my author email in there, so david.eagle@onespatial.com, and the root document is roads. So that's just adjusting the XML header effectively inside the KML. So now I have my item coming in. I'm going to change the name of the layer that's going to end up in the KML file. So I want road incidents is going to be my layer name, and there's all the attributes that I've brought in, that I've flattened out. And if we just disable that link for a moment, and I'm going to connect an inspector and run that and see what we get. So I've got my FME 2016 set up so that it's in prompt and run mode, and we've already got an error there, so we just need to go and check what's going on. So it's not got the elements to match, so I just need to go and check that tree. So what I'm going to do is just add that reader again. So dive back to the URL, tools away in a live demo. I need that. I just didn't apply properly the elements to match. It was my fault. Hopefully that should be good now. If I rerun that. Good, there we go. So as I say, I needed to just inspect that content, and there we go. There's our tabular view. Notice I've got no map, no geometry, but I do have all of these individual incidents to take a look at that are happening on the road network. So I have a tabular view to begin with. So because I have a longitude and latitude in here, what would be handy is to go ahead and perhaps set up this data. We know that it's in latitude and longitude, so I'm going to add in a transformer called a coordinate system setter. You'll notice that if you just click onto the screen and type the name of a transformer, so in this case I'm going to go for an attribute something, it gives me a list of transformers to choose from. I actually typed there CSS. CSS gives me a coordinate system setter, that's the camel case or the short name of this transformer, and in here I'm going to set it to lat long 84, and then I'm going to go and get a vertex creator transformer into which I'm going to specify the longitude and latitude. And if we pop those together and hit run, then what we should get is some points on a map. And there we go. And this is a UK map base feed provided by Geoinformation Group, and you can see that if I just move in, that web map feed gives us that view, and there you can see all of the incidents on the UK motorway network in this case. So there's the M5, and if I click on the M5, we'll see that there is a description of some lane closures. Lanes 1, 2 and 3 will be closed, and there'll be a time period associated with that. So now what we can do is bring this back, and we want to just delete that link and run that as is, and then we can right click and just open that containing folder, and I've got a KMZ file here, and we've also got Google Earth opening up behind the scenes. If I bring that in, there we go. And there's our points on the road network. So, quick way of getting some road information here directly into Google Earth using FME and pulling some data directly from the web. And the benefit there is that every time I were to run this process, it will always go and get the latest incidents from the web location of that XML. So a quick way of building a workflow. So let's just dive back to the presentation. Having a look look at local government applications, there are a huge amount of functions in local government, and central government crosses over to some of these functions as well. But each of these, whether it's addressing or school or building regulations or highways, each of those has a function that involves data. Whether it's data that includes a map, or whether it's data that includes regulations or coded values that need to be manipulated, all of those involve data in one way or another. So the other key thing is that a lot of government organisations are squeezed for budget, having to do more with less, fewer people, and functions changing departments quite frequently, which means that being agile is very helpful. FME gives the ability to allow you to automate processes and try and take some of the more mundane tasks off your daily to-do list. It does allow you to exchange data. One of the very useful taglines that FME has is connect, transform and automate, and that very aptly describes what you're doing with FME. It allows you to connect to applications and data environments, whether it's web-based environments or whether it's a tax business rate system or whether it's a CRM, and manipulate that content and move it through to an environment that it's required in. And that could be a function that happens overnight, or it could be a data migration, or it could be a one-off task. When it comes to things like address management and addressing, organisations use FME to move data and content for things like the LLPG in the UK, Local Land and Property Gazetteer. Organisations like Nottingham City Council synchronise their address information between different systems overnight. Generally that's a nightly run, and only the changes are moved, so effectively there are some inserts, some updates and some deletes that happen between each system. As during the day address information is collated or changes to individual records are made, those are then passed through to different back office systems and web GIS systems overnight, so that everything is synchronized the next morning. Another common usage is for moving public transport information. There are a number of different public transport standards like TransExchange, and there are also data sets and data standards like NAPTAN as well. TransExchange in this case is a way of moving around public transport bus information, and it's a standard. Let's go and have a look at a process that deals with that. I'm just going to close the one that we did earlier on and pop open a TransExchange process. This too, TransExchange data is also XML, and you can see that it contains a number of different layer types. So stop points and route sections are the ones that I'll be interested in just for the sake of this exercise. Key things that happen in here are that stop points get given a point on the map out of the XML content. In the case of the route sections, they are delivered as a start and an end point, and we use a point connector transformer to join them so that we will end up with a line feature. The other key thing that I highlighted at the start is that there are often lookup requirements. So in this case, the data itself includes a coded type, and what we're doing here is looking them up so that we find the exact description for that coded type, so we can actually publish that into the target data. In this case, we're writing out to a shapefile. So, but if we just run this process as is, we're just going to send the data out to the target shapefiles, both stop point and route sections. But we're also going to send that content out to the data inspector, and here you can see that if I just toggle that off, you can see that we've got our stop points by type, so we can toggle on certain types of bus stop, and we've also got our bus routes. And those bus routes are broken into sections because of the way that we constructed them. So handy little process to produce bus routes and bus stops. Again, sort of this content happens to be XML. There is a huge amount of XML flavors out there on the web, and standards that are based on XML. So if you haven't worked with XML much, then it won't be long before some passes your desk, I suspect. When it comes to asset management, a number of organisations use FME to deal with the CAD to GIS problem. Both the Wirral and Barnsley have taken content and moved it from these environments and used FME to do the publishing. In this case, the Wirral had hundreds and hundreds of AutoCAD drawing files on which there were street lighting content distributed across multiple layers. FME was used to read data from many CAD files, find every feature that had a block name. So a block name is a name of a symbol in CAD. Find a block name that had a streetlight reference and then move that to a common GIS layer. So whilst initially there was hundreds of DWGs, the end process after an FME workflow was a single GIS layer with multiple streetlights stored on it. And in the case of Barnsley, they have taken a number of different map basic code projects in this case and turned those into FME workflows because there are more people within the organisation that know how to build an FME workspace. And they're a lot more visual. There's no code required if you wish in an FME workspace. More obscurely, perhaps, a number of different organisations are using FME to move data around that is CRM related. Barnsley actually have been involved in moving content and documents actually into SharePoint. Hackney have moved HR data, Safe Software move HR data, and we did a migration of our CRM and finance and sales systems a few years ago using FME, doing data cleanse and extracting content and merging it based on these three different environments to move it to a single source that at the time was salesforce.com. Ordnance Survey data processing is a very common requirement. It is a spatial problem. It is something that needs to be done either using FME to do a quick data load to a database, and then perhaps styling is done in the client, or perhaps FME could be used to do some of the styling. In this case, this was an example of Ordnance Survey Street View, which is actually a raster data set being manipulated and buildings being removed from it. So there was pixel level change being done here, reading out pixels that had this sort of orange colour in each pixel and replacing that value with more of a cream colour to match the background, so that there was a less cluttered view for, in this case, Hackney's web map. And then organisations like Calderdale are doing postcode boundary processing for code point and Ordnance Survey boundary line, and using FME to do that on a schedule every few months. When it comes to accessing data on the web, there is a plethora of APIs being made available. So lots of content is being published via APIs. The National Health Service publishes a syndication API, so you can go and get access to a number of different services through this API. So we can see here that we're passing in a postcode and getting back all the accident and emergency hospitals within a 40-kilometre radius of that postcode. So all we need to do is build up a query using this process, and we can use FME to do that. So let's go and have a look at a process to do that. So I'm going to effectively hit the NHS Choices API, and let's just launch a process in FME that's pre-configured. There we go. Slightly wayward label there, but we'll resolve that. So what we've got here is effectively no reader at the start of the process. It's actually a creator. The creator is a trigger feature. We send a single trigger feature, build the URL that we want to hit, and pass it into the feature reader. In this case, our URL is going to contain the web call. Let's just go back to one of these earlier processes. There we go. We're going to take the URL, the service, the text, the location, the format, the API key, and the range, and put that all into an attribute called web call. And then we're going to pass that into a feature reader, and that's going to read back the content from the page. So effectively, what we're going to do is build a URL that gives us back our content. And that's what we're going to get back. We're going to get back the full page with the details of the sites. So if I prompt and run, I can say that I want to go and get within 60-kilometre range of this Bristol postcode. I want to go and get all of the, in this case, accident and emergency sites. So we can send that across. And there we go, we've got lots of points, and if I click on that point there, that's right in the middle of Bristol, we can see that that is Bristol Royal Infirmary that's coming back from that API. Writing the data out, in this case, to KML, but it could be going into a database. The idea here is that you have this process running at, say, 2 in the morning every week, and it's updating your database locally that displays on your WebGIS with the NHS related content that is important to you. So you've always got a synchronized view of your environment, in that case in a health context. When it comes to Roadworks, there's an organisation in the UK called Elgin that you can subscribe as a local authority to a service provided by them, effectively what that does is it gives you access to the content that is available on roadworks.org. So here you can see a site that includes lots of roadwork data from a number of different suppliers, whether it's a local authority or a utility company, or any number of telcos. Then you can see that there is incidents and roadworks and delays that are likely to happen in different parts of the country. So what we'd like to do is go and get access to that data in our own local GIS tool, and to do that we can build an FME process, of course, to go and scrape that content from the web. By the way, feel free to put messages into the chat window. I see there's a couple that have arrived whilst I've been talking. We will cover those off at the end by sending you a reply. So feel free to put messages into the chat window. Okay, so this is the Elgin process. In this case, we're going to go and get content from the Roadworks API. I've got a point that I'm creating here, so just creating a point geometry at a location, X and Y coordinates, putting a buffer around it. I want a 5-kilometre buffer around that location, and then I'm going to effectively extract the geometry of that query, because the SOAP request requires a string geometry, X and Y's, and then I'm going to build a little template. So the SOAP request requires you to populate the request in a particular way, so we can fill that with a particular set of fixed values into that workflow. Template that call, and the HTTP caller in this case is a transformer that allows me to send to the Roadwork API my SOAP request. And what I should do is run this, and I've got some parameters populated because in this example I'm loading Oracle, but actually let's just check that I'm not loading Oracle at the moment. No, so I've disabled the link to the target. That Oracle table is not going to get loaded. I'm just going to send the data out to the inspector here. So if I run this as is, you should see one request coming through to the HTTP caller, and then effectively that is going to break out lots of roadworks once the XML document that's been returned is parsed out into the number of roadworks that we're looking at. So, and there are all our roadworks. One neat little trick that you might not notice, that inspector does give you a group by option. So if you want to view based on a group, I've applied a group by on the origin organization name, and effectively in the inspector that completes or carries out a fan out, so that I can go and see, for example, Kingston upon Thames, probably not a good example, Hounslow, there you go. So there's all the roadworks that Hounslow Council have got in this particular area. So in that case, there's a footway reconstruction that's going on by Hounslow Council, and you might want to go and see what, say, Virgin Media are doing in the area, and in this case they're probably digging up the road to put some fibre optic cable in the ground. So a number of different things to take a look at, clearing a blockage in the footway for a new customer connection from Virgin Media. So I guess the key message is that there's a huge amount of data on the web. There's a lot of content that is being pushed out via APIs. That content is easily accessible to you with FME. And there are a number of webinars that SAFE are doing around the API topic. So if that's of interest to you, then go and have a look at safe.com and register for some of their webinars as well. Data validation is also a big part of FME. We've produced a custom transformer called the UK Postcode Validator that a lot of FME users in the UK use to check that the structure of a postcode is valid. It's a very handy tool, but it's not the only data validation tool in FME, for sure. There are lots to choose from. But it does give you some neat capabilities, so what I'll do is show you a little bit around that possibility. I have a process that I'm just about to show you that goes through some steps of data validation and geocoding, but also report publication. So in this case I have a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet contains some address information. The address information is content that we can go and have a look at, that includes information about properties and housing, and this housing stock contains data that is of interest to us, so we can go and play around with that. You see there's a postcode in here, and we want to check that this is a correct and fit for purpose data set. If we pass this data through the valid port, hopefully we can check that the postcode is valid. If it is valid, then we're going to pass it to the HTTP caller, which is going to build a URL and hit the API that is postcodes.io to geocode the content. So let's try and run this. Whilst it's running, you can see at the end here we're using the new transformer, the HTML report generator, to effectively build a web map and a tabular view of that data. If I preview this web page that we're going to construct, you can see an example view of that page. There's a little leaflet OpenStreetMap view in there with a table at the bottom. We're going to populate that template using FME. So I write it out. There is an HTML writer that's new in FME. If I go and open that report up, and there we go. So we've got the ability now to put a pin on the map, to geocode the content, and there's the good postcodes, and then down at the bottom here are the ones that have failed for some reason. So in this case the postcode string is too short, in this case it's too long, in this case it's got only numeric values in it. So these are ones that didn't geocode and aren't on the map. So effectively this is a mini validation report that allows us to find out which postcodes are good and bad in our process. If we want to go one step further, we could disable the write at this point and use some of the new capabilities in FME 2016 to actually go and enable all the bookmarks, write the data out to HTML using the feature writer instead. And what I'm going to do is then upload that to Amazon S3 web service. So I'm uploading the HTML document itself, and effectively what that's going to give me is a URL to that page. So I'm going to validate some data, geocode it against postcodes.io, create an HTML report, write it up to Amazon S3 and host it, and then it's a published, easily accessible web address. So one process gives me a published document and a live web page without having to go through a hosting process afterwards. And that's thanks in this part to Amazon S3. We'll just let that finish. There should be a URL in here. So that URL there, if I just click on it, it is public. If you want to go and key that in, you should be able to get to that page. You can see that that's a live hosted web page now, sitting on Amazon. So it's a neat little process to do some data validation and publication of content. Number of different government organisations, as I alluded to earlier on, are using FME to publish their open data content. Nottingham City Council publish planning application content very regularly to Open Data Nottingham, and that's referenced on data.gov.uk, and they also tweet about it. So they use FME to both produce the CSV that contains the planning application information, but also tweet as soon as they've published that content. That is also done live via FME in an automated way. So much of the open data that Nottingham produce is produced and published using FME in an automatic way. So I guess I'd like to draw some conclusions from today's session. One around the fact that FME is pretty flexible. Most things that you need to do in a data context are achievable with FME. Really it's down to a little bit of imagination on your part as the user, and hopefully that's what we're trying to fuel using through doing these webinars. So hopefully we've given you a few ideas of how you can use FME using some of the techniques I've described. Do go and have a look at some of our case studies. The two local authorities that we have case studies on are both Barnsley and Nottingham. You've seen them referenced a couple of times in today's session. So go over to our website, go and click into customers, and you'll see a whole host of customers to go and have a look at. And you can see that we've got a number of full described case studies around those organisations. So do please go and have a look at those. Do make sure that you spend some time on knowledge.safe.com. Sign up to the chat forum, get involved in the FME community if you're a user, and go and have a look at some of the documentation that's available. Some interesting statistics about the Knowledge Centre and the Q&A forum. The average response time to a question posted on the Q&A forum is 2 minutes. So it's a very popular, very heavily used Q&A forum. In the knowledge base there are thousands of articles that are how-to. And if there's something that you want in FME that you don't think exists, then go and post an idea, and that will start the ball rolling to see if you can get that functionality added into FME. So the idea with FME is that we're trying to help you go through a process to automate your processes and provide, if you can, self-service routines, but if not, then actually have some level of automation that's happening overnight or during the weekend. And hopefully with that automation you'll get the time to be more innovative, get back a little bit of your time for having to do some of the more mundane tasks. Let FME do that work for you. FME is a proven technology. It is used by a lot of government organisations, and it's definitely helping to use resources more efficiently. You're welcome to contact us to find out a little bit more about some of what some of our government customers are doing. These are some of the resources to go to. Obviously, SAFE's and ours, our websites. onespatial.com/FME will give you some details about us and our involvement in the FME product. And if you go to OneSpatial Group, that YouTube channel, you will see a number of historic webinars, and also this one will be recorded and posted up there later on, most likely today. And there's a little bit more detail about the Knowledge Centre. If you want to follow us or SAFE on Twitter, they're the two accounts to follow. You're welcome. But for now, thank you very much, and we'll reply to any questions you wish to post into the chat window right now. Thank you.